Hey there, guys. This is the Season 3 review that I did almost exactly a year ago, or I think it is exactly a year ago, I'm not sure. But yeah, I thought since it's been a year since I did this, it might be interesting to do a commentary of this video, because this was quite a project at the time. I think this was probably one of the biggest projects that I've ever had the pleasure to do. And it's funny because at the time I was kind of thinking that this might be the last My Little Pony related video that I would ever do, and then I would just sort of drop the whole My Little Pony thing and go off and do other things. Because, I was sort of thinking that, I'd done my bit, I'd, followed through on Season 3 and everything, and the show was taking a little bit of a different direction. Perhaps this was a good time to sort of leave and let other people take care of the reviews and stuff. And at the time, it didn't seem like a particularly big deal for me to move on to different things, because I think I had about 750 subscribers at the time. And, if I was getting like 200 or 300 views on a video, I was doing quite well. But what happened basically when I made this video is, basically I just wanted to talk about every single episode and like properly thought out stuff. And I didn't really want to go to the hassle of uploading a whole bunch of videos about every single episode, so I just decided to do them all at once. And, that was still quite a project, but I felt it was just sort of easier just to do the whole thing at once, and it just seemed to garner a lot more attention just because it was like the entire season being reviewed in a single video. And I think, it was just the fact that it was a half-hour video of me just talking non-stop about the season and what I thought and what I didn't like, what I liked, whatever. It just seemed to garner a lot more attention. I just seemed to get a massive number of new subscribers, sort of like a month or a couple of months after this video came out. ANY Pony contacted me fairly soon after this video came out, saying how impressed he was by it, and he subscribed to me. After that happened, I think possibly a few other reviewers may have subscribed to me after that happened as well. And he also invited me onto his podcast, Crepuscular Bronies Discuss, and I think it's that really that has not only sort of expanded this community sort of thing as a whole, but it also sort of introduced me to the fact that there are quite a lot of other reviewers out there. I didn't sort of realise at the time that I made this video that there were so many reviewers out there talking about the show and whatever, or analysers, as Digi seems to have created the community's name. He seemed to have sort of created this whole community, and he sort of has the right to call it analyzers, even though I don't really think that's what I do. But yeah, I knew about Golden Fox. I actually have been subscribed to Golden Fox since before the Brony fandom even existed. He used to review movies. I knew about Strawberry Skunk, and obviously I knew about Paleo. Pretty much everyone knew about Paleo. But at the time, I thought that was about it. I actually didn't know who this ANY Pony guy was when he first contacted me. He actually introduced himself to me. I knew about Digi, and I think I knew about Tommy Oliver, or Brony Curious as he was at the time, but I don't think I took much interest in what he was doing. I think I knew him more as just the guy who was doing the fan fiction about Trixie and wrote that book about Scootaloo. I don't really think I really thought of him as a reviewer at the time. And I think he probably thought of himself in the same kind of way. I think he feels like he puts a lot more effort into that kind of stuff than he does his reviews. His reviews are just sort of a kind of a casual kind of thing he just does in his spare time. And yet now that's the thing he's known for. But yeah, basically I went on to the Crepuscular Bronies Discuss thing. I think it was probably a couple of months after that I made this video. Theory Brony was a guest on there. I knew about him, actually, before I made... I knew about him probably for about a month before I was on the podcast. I don't think he knew about me, though, and so it was kind of nice just for me to introduce myself to him. And basically there was a little after show after we'd recorded the podcast where I got introduced to a few new other people, and that's sort of where I discovered... I'm pretty sure I discovered Voice of Reason on that. I certainly discovered Past Analysis on that. And I think it sort of just enabled me to realise that this was, something that a lot of people were doing, and it was something that I could sort of use to my advantage. I could garner a lot of new opinions from people. I could talk to people about, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that? Kind of thing. I could speak to them about what they thought of things. I could find out, if they wanted to do videos alongside me, they wanted to help me out with anything in particular. And I think it also kind of inspired me to sort of try and put a bit more effort into the videos that I did as well. Like, I didn't have an OC until NY came and spoke to me about basically being on the podcast. He basically said, you'll need an OC for this because I want to put it next to your picture. So that's basically where the design for that came wrong. I just decided, I better do an OC just for this podcast. I thought at the time that was all it was going to be for, but then I started using it a bit more. And it just sort of went from there. And I don't know if perhaps it was more appearing on the podcast that garnered a whole bunch of new subscribers, because I don't think I even have 1,000 subscribers even when I went on the podcast, so it may have been that. It may have been more the podcast, although I look back at the podcast I was on for the first time, that doesn't even have 1,000 views on YouTube yet, so I don't know, it can't have been that as much. Perhaps it was just, the fact that I got introduced to new reviewers and they spread the word around perhaps a little bit. Or perhaps I have just sort of benefited from the analyst community. It just happened to explode in between seasons for some reason. I don't know why it would happen in between seasons, and why would it not happen during a season? Because I actually thought I might get a whole crapload of new subscribers once Season 4 started, and that didn't really happen. It seems to have all happened in between seasons. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I should actually probably talk about this actual video that I'm talking over at the moment. One of the things that people have said in response to this video that they don't really like is what I've said about King Sombra, in that which I sort of compare him to the Nothing and Never-Ending Story, and people come back to me and say, that's not a fair comparison, you should compare him to Sauron from Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, how is he like Sauron from Lord of the Rings? There's no equivalent of Saruman, there's no equivalent of the Ring, there's no equivalent of Mordor, and there's no equivalent of the orcs or his huge army that he has, just conquering everything. How is he like Sauron? He's not even like sort of physical sort of warrior fighting anyone in the way that Sauron was. And honestly, that's really not much of a compliment, really. That's not really any kind of way of praising Sombra, as far as I'm concerned, to say he's similar to Sauron, because Sauron isn't really a particularly threatening villain, or he's not a particularly memorable villain. When people think of Lord of the Rings, do you really think of Sauron? Is that really the first thing you think of? You think of the Ring, you think of Gollum, you think of Gandalf, you think of Frodo. You might think of the orcs, you'll think of Mordor, you'll think of the Dark Riders. Sauron is probably one of the last things you'll think of, really. He's not a particularly memorable villain. When people talk about great villains from fantasy stories, Sauron really isn't one of the ones people are likely to think of, so to say he's compared to Sauron, well, yeah, that just proves my point that he's kind of a pathetic kind of villain. I mean, all he really does in those films, I mean, he maybe does more in the book, I don't know, I've only read about 10% of the book. But all he does in the films is get defeated by a broken sword, basically. So, yeah, I think that basically just proves my point that Sombra is a pretty pathetic and forgettable kind of villain by comparing him to Sauron, really. And I would still maintain that he is more similar to the Nothing from Never-Ending Story. He is more just a sort of mist engulfing everything to me. So yeah, I don't think he's like Sauron from Lord of the Rings. I think he's more like the Nothing. But the key difference is they actually try to pretend that he's a character as opposed to the Nothing, which isn't a character really. I'm just going to say it right here. Is there anything else? I have changed my ratings for a few of these episodes, although I don't think I've really changed my specific thoughts about any of the episodes since I made this video. But yeah, I think I was a bit generous to Spike at Your Service by giving it a 6 out of 10. It's nowhere near that good. And Magical Mystery Cure, actually, rather annoyingly, Magical Mystery Cure was one of the most difficult episodes for me to get a handle on figuring out exactly how I felt about it. It took me several months really to sort of properly figure out if I liked it or not. I think I've eventually concluded that I don't like it very much. I enjoyed the songs, but that's about it. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for Magical Mystery Cure. That's probably also a bit generous. But I have an excuse there, and that is I only made this video like a couple of weeks after Magical Mystery Cure had first aired, and it's just not nearly enough time for me to properly figure out how good an episode that was. God, I would have had an absolute nightmare if I'd been on the podcast for Magical Mystery Cure. I would not have had anything to say, because that was like the day after. A lot of people have been saying in the comments when I ask why does Rainbow Dash sleep on the outside of her sleeping bag, some people have been saying, wow, you've never been camping, have you? Which I find kind of an irritating kind of comment, because that doesn't answer my question, why does Rainbow Dash sleep on the outside of her sleeping bag? Do you gradually find out from going camping a lot that it's some kind of requirement that you don't sleep on the outside of your sleeping bag or something? I don't know. Can someone explain that to me? Why does going camping a lot explain to you why people sleep on the outside of their sleeping bag? I don't know what that means, to be honest. Yeah, Sleeps in Ponyville, so it's very much one of the real fan favourites. It's definitely the best episode of Season 3, I would say. I think I actually probably enjoyed Magic Duel a little bit more, though. But I would still sort of objectively accept that Sleep in Ponyville is probably a better episode. It's a similar thing, actually, this season, actually. I think I enjoyed Flight to the Finish more than I enjoyed Pinkie Pride, but I think I'd be willing to accept that Pinkie Pride is probably a better episode. And I don't really like the way that Lightning Dust is vilified in Wonderbelts Academy. That's one of the major things I didn't like about this episode. But actually, yeah, this is another rating I would probably want to revise in some kind of way, actually. I think I actually like this episode more now than I did when I made the video. No, I wouldn't say like more. I do think that I would consider it a better episode. It's kind of like when I reviewed Hurricane Fluttershy. I didn't realize when I first came to review Hurricane Fluttershy just how good it was. And then, here I am actually reviewing Wonderbolts Academy. I'm still not realizing just how good it is. But yeah, Wonderbolts Academy is a great episode as well. It really sort of hit home to me just how much Rainbow Dash has grown up and properly evolved as a character over the last couple of seasons. And then they kind of sort of dropped the bomb a little bit with Season 4, with the way she's acting in episodes like Rainbow Falls. I don't understand why I made this Full Metal Jacket reference here. It's kind of pointless, that. But yeah, this is definitely a better portrayal of Spitfire in this episode than it is in Rainbow Falls. God, she's a real jerk in that episode. I didn't notice this even on repeated viewings of Wonderbolts Academy until, again, somebody pointed it out in the comments. It's like, ooh, can you just about make out Spitfire's cutie mark? These shots, and I actually have been back and watched the episode since, and yes, you can see Spitfire's cutie mark in some of the scenes when she's sitting in the office. You can actually quite obviously see it. Let me think, what else is there to say? I suppose I could go back to the podcast that I was invited onto. The podcast itself, actually, we were, I think, talking about Double Rainboom. I think I, at the time, just had a couple of basic thoughts about it. I don't think I realised at the time just how bad it was and how much I hated it. But the after show that I was on was kind of interesting. Again, I was introduced to Voice of Reason on there, and he briefly mentioned to me that he doesn't like Dragon Quest. And I think I must have said to him, oh, it's kind of unusual. And then I think I started talking to him for a couple of weeks after that about, oh, why don't you like Dragon Quest? And then I think he also mentioned to me, oh, well, Doctor Who was great this week. And I'm like, oh, you're a Whovian as well? Well, that's kind of interesting. And Well, it was basically just those two sort of elements of just briefly mentioning me to those things that really just sort of properly got me talking to him, and obviously, eventually down the line, shortly before Season 4 began, we did that epic review of Dragon Quest, and I think now, basically, all we do is talk about Doctor Who, back and forth, yeah. That'll be interesting, actually, once Doctor Who comes back. We'll have 2 shows to talk about. And also Past Analysis was a guy I was introduced on that after show. Yeah, he's another guy I speak to quite a lot. I think Golden Fox was on there as well. But, you know, I speak to him. I was speaking to him quite a bit, even before. Well, no, I'm trying to remember now. I was definitely speaking to him before I made this video. Like, I was having a little bit of a back and forth with him, because I didn't know who he was. But, actually, you know what, for a long time, he was just a guy I watched on YouTube. I didn't really think of him as anything more than that, and I didn't even realise he was probably younger than me, actually, until I saw him on camera a couple of times. Because he has such a sort of masculine-sounding voice. I thought he was in, like, his 40s or something. But, I actually didn't really think of him as an MLP reviewer for a long time. I thought of him more as reviewing movies, because that's what he used to do before MLP came along. Those are still on his channel. There's quite a lot of quite good film reviews. Should go and check them out. And Spike at Your Service, without question the worst episode of Season 3. And yeah, it's just sort of very sort of out of character behaviour by both Applejack and Spike. And yes, it's just a sort of prime example of how the writers are not interested in really doing anything with Spike. I freaking hate it. The importance of accepting help when it is offered to you. And now it seems I suppose I can at least appreciate the fact that this is quite obviously a Spike episode, whereas the last 2 sort of quote-unquote Spike episodes that we've had, you know, you could even sort of debate whether or not they are actually Spike episodes, because they focus on the other things, you know. Just for Sidekicks, is about the pets, really, and Power Ponies is more about the main 6 and their powers, really. They're not really Spike episodes at all. The only way you could really argue that they're Spike episodes is that Spike learns the lesson at the end, which is seems kind of lazy to me. Whereas this is quite obviously a Spike episode, but it's just still not a very good one. Oh, and another thing people have been suggesting to me, I think probably since the Simple Ways review, is that perhaps Spike is just over Rarity now. And an episode like this where he's fawning over Rarity, that kind of contradicts that kind of theory. I don't think that's the case at all. You can't just throw important things like the rules main characters live by without giving us some kind of proper explanation. What else is there to talk about here? I don't really want to talk about this episode. This is a lame episode. Oh, that's a good episode. Yeah, I like that episode. I don't understand anybody's problem with it. Why they would hate that episode. That's a good episode. That's probably the only good episode, Spike episode we've had. Well, Secret of My Access was good. The Timberwolves were freaking cool. They actually had some kind of I kind of forget that this was, the Timberwolves, or the really interesting design of the Timberwolves was introduced. Because, you know, you look back at the Timberwolves in Family Appreciation Day, they really don't look that good in comparison. But yeah, it's funny how I just completely forget about that awesome design of the Timberwolves. That's how forgettable and interesting an episode this is. What else? Is there anything else I could say about Season 3? People seem to sort of generally agree that it's the worst season, you know, even on the basis of having only half of Season 4 so far. I think it is a little bit handicapped by the fact that it was only 13 episodes, though, and you know, quite obviously, Magical Mystery Cure would have been a 2-parter had it been the full 26 seasons. It's even possible, actually, that this episode, Keep Calm and Flutter On, could have been a 2-parter. But then I think I said this in the video, actually. I don't know if there's really enough here to bump it out to a 2-parter. It's just the ending that's a little bit rushed. The rest of it is fine. I think his rolling it's funny, red carpet tongue are my favorite. There does seem to be something a little bit lacking in the 2 episodes Discord's played a large role in since he's come back. I mean, Princess Twilight Sparkle was alright. He didn't really play a particularly large role in that.
And the way she is fair with Discord, but also knows where to draw the line. It seems like she always puts in her best performances in her episodes, but is otherwise
Fluttershy,
one-dimensional.
I've sort of realised since the start of season 4 is most definitely my least favourite of the main 6. Just because I can't figure her out really. I don't know if she's undefined exactly. It's just I have a hard time sort of summarising her personality or what kind of character she is exactly. She's just kind of timid and meek, I suppose. She sort of lacks self-confidence really, but there's nothing more sort of to her other than that really.
Jack's face hat moment, Pinky's rant about chocolate rain, and her shiny hooves.
See now, the thing I actually really love about this show, it's actually the reason why even the bad episodes of this show, I still am able to enjoy them because they are episodes of this show, and that's because, well, first of all, the visuals. Actually, no, the visuals have been the case since the very first episode, and I didn't love the show since the first episode. No, these characters actually, they are all just so enjoyable to watch. You know, it's just a lot of fun just trying to sort of figure out, you know, their different sides of their personality and their complex personas that they have. And I don't get that with Fluttershy at all. Fluttershy just sort of acts sort of timid and uneasy and sort of cute about everything. She doesn't really have any more kind of performance outside of that really, other than, you know, just knowing stuff about animals, which is more just a sort of exposition kind of role that she plays. But the other 5, and certainly Spike to an even larger extent, perhaps not so much actually since season 3. He seems to have stopped producing as much comedy in the last 2 seasons, but certainly in the case of the other 5 of the main 6, just the complicated different kind of traits to their personality and the different things that they say and do, and the way that it is just so enjoyable to watch them on screen the whole time, because that's the thing actually that I always look for. I think certainly in TV shows, maybe not so much films, but certainly TV shows, the thing I look for is characters that I just enjoy watching. Just the experience of watching them on screen. If I enjoy that, then they are a great character as far as I'm concerned. And I'm certainly going to enjoy the show on some level if I am able to enjoy the characters. So that is really, I think, the core reason why I love this show. It's because of these characters. They are just a lot of fun to watch. And it's the reason why I will enjoy even bad episodes. Angel, actually, that's another character that I just enjoy watching a lot. People seem to have a lot of problems with the fact that he's a bit of a dick, really, but that doesn't matter to me because, you know, obviously I don't approve of what he's doing, but why should I dislike it? He's not doing anything to me. He can't get to me through the fourth wall. It's a shame, really, the other pets haven't been more sort of fleshed out. I mean, Angel has quite a distinct sort of personality. Opal kind of does. Tank, again, you get a little bit of development in his, sort of basically his only appearance outside of this episode in Oedipus Pet Win. So he kind of does, Winona doesn't. I'm trying to think, who else is there? Oh, Gummy. Yeah, Gummy's been on screen enough, but he doesn't really have any kind of development. There's nothing really you can say about Gummy other than, you know, he's got no teeth, and you know, he's kind of gormless, I suppose. Aloysius, I suppose, is kind of clever. That's all you can really say. But yeah, Angel is definitely by far the most fleshed out of all of the 6 pets. I suppose I should talk about the CMC as well. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They seem to have forgotten about their cutie marks now. It's more just about sort of evolving as characters and maturing as much as they possibly can. And
aren't she and Spike supposed to be fairly close by this stage? Corey Powell, did you
what the
even
heck
watch
is
the
that?
show before you started writing?
This Twitter
Overall, this
avatar.
episode was worth it just because we get a lot of character interactions we've not seen very
Yeah,
much of before.
this is something actually I wanted to see a bit more of. You know, Spike and the CMC interacting. And outside of this episode, I don't think we've ever had that. You know, before or since. Yeah, Games Ponies Play was another one that I've grown to dislike a lot more since.
MLP version of the Olympics. and we hadn't really had a sports-themed episode since Fall Weather Friends.
Because yeah, it's kind of sports themed in that it's to do with the Equestria Games, but it's not really to do with the Equestria Games at all. And actually, the one sort of sports themed episode that we have had to do with the Equestria Games so far, Rainbow Falls, wasn't really all that good.
But for the most part, she did feel a bit wasted. In fact,
of course, we see the Crystal Empire here. It's kind of weird, actually. Haven't seen the Crystal Empire since then, even though they've talked enough about the Equestria Games during Season 4. And presumably we will see the Crystal Empire when the Equestria Games actually take place. Because I assume we are going to see the Equestria Games at some point.
Including taking the blame at the end.
I did like Rainbow in this. Rainbow was very good in this episode.
It's been wonderful for Rainbow Dash. The evolution of her character is just such a joy.
Obviously, the whole Rainbow Scootaloo thing has not really developed since Sleepless in Ponyville, really. I just realised she's got a chicken as a cutie mark. What does that mean? It does seem to me, actually, a lot of the time the writers just sort of give them sort of random things as cutie marks. Because it's kind of a difficult thing to sort of figure out just from someone's personality what their cutie mark would be. Because I think to myself, what would my cutie mark be? Because they say in the show that it's your special talent, it's the thing that makes you special. So it occurs to me, well, how is the main way that I am identified? What do people think of when they think of me? And the main thing they kind of think of, I think, is that I'm good at playing football or soccer, depending on what part of the world you're in. So that's why I decided to make that my cutie mark on the couple of occasions that it has actually appeared.
How about the experience you had in the Crystal Empire?
Miss Harshwinny.
That definitely was impartial. Nobody gave a damn about
her face was perfectly fine in this episode, which is more than can be said with Portrell in Fight to the Finish. Although that's quite a good expression.
Impartial treatment.
As you can see, these are rather primitive video editing skills that I had even only a year ago. No clips or anything, just still images. I was trying to sort of copy Strobiskunk's kind of style of just having still images, occasionally playing clips, but not very often.
You're willing to just take another pony's word for it that she got a nice welcome.
And I don't think this was a particularly good mic that I was using either. Which is kind of a shame, really, since audio is kind of the important thing with a video like this.
Yeah, this whole thing is
what is that? I don't know who that was supposed to be.
During the events of the previous episode, but I do kind of feel like they should have shown this one first, since it is the more important.
No, I would certainly not give it a 7 out of 10 now, although the ratings aren't really all that important, I kind of just want to provide ratings for people because a lot of people are sort of confused after watching an episode, did you like it? Did you not like it? So I feel the ratings are a good way of just sort of giving a basic kind of idea of how much I like it or not. Although people do still get a little bit upset with the ratings being such a specific kind of thing. Like, if I say I liked an episode but then I only give it a 7 out of 10, people are like, well, why haven't you given it an 8 or a 9? And if I don't like the episode and then I give it a 4 out of 10, and people are like, well, why didn't you give it a 3 or a 2? Whatever, so it still doesn't really answer people's questions, it just raises more questions, really. So perhaps I should stop doing that. Although it is a sort of a good sort of basic way of giving me kind of a general idea of the standard of a season or the standard of a certain character's episodes or, whatever, stuff like that. I do still maintain that I do like the songs in Magic on Mystreakia. I thought they were all very good songs. Whether or not they add to the story in any kind of notable kind of way, I'm not sure. But as songs on their own, I think they are very good.
When we are told quite clearly in the Cutie Mark Chronicles, an episode by the same writer, the Rainbow got her cutie mark by performing
and there's Rainbow Dash performing the Sonic Rainboom when she was a filly. Which kind of raises a lot of questions, are fillies and colts capable of flying just as fast as fully grown Pegasi? Never really been explored or anything, has it?
People just not like change or something? I actually think this will be pretty awesome.
But,
can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah, never understood people's problem with the change to Twilight and making her an Alicorn.
But I think what my cutie mark is telling me a true friend.
I don't understand what people were worried about exactly. And then the weird thing is, of course, it hasn't really changed their character. It hasn't changed the basic sort of feel or tone of the show in any kind of major way in Season 4. And now people are freaking out about that. The fact that it hasn't changed, it seems.
before
It's
the
like,
season finale.
why do you insist on the show being a certain thing, on the show doing specific things that you want it to do? Why can't you just accept what is on, well, not accept what is on screen, but why can't you just sort of wait and see what happens, and then if it's, if it just makes for good television, if it just makes for good entertainment, you can just accept it. If it doesn't make sense or it's not good entertainment, then that is a valid reason to criticize, I would say. But just because it's not doing what you think it should be doing, or it feels different, I don't think that's a valid way of criticizing it.
And in the case of Spike and Rarity, I think they actually took steps back. Especially in terms of the relationship between the two.
Yeah, and Spike and Rarity's relationship is just nothing now. It's just a joke, to be honest.
Compared to an average of 7.
Yeah, I think it might actually be even lower than 7 out of 10 now, season 3 for me, as an average kind of score.
Fair assessment of this season. No real bad episodes, but certainly a step down.
I don't agree with that statement, actually, that there aren't bad episodes. I think Spike Your Service is a bad episode, and I think possibly Games Ponies Play could be considered a bad episode, but that to me is it.
Usual 26 episodes next season, so hopefully they can use that extra leeway to step things up again.
And season 4 has definitely been an improvement for me.
See you soon.